It's 6:30. We need to bring the meeting to order and begin. We welcome you to the Planning Commission of March 20th, 2018. I will note that there's a quorum of the board here with only one member absent. Our first item is approval of the minutes from the February 6th, 2018 meeting. Or do we have any comments about the minutes? Or do we have ready for a motion? Mr. Bowman?
I move that we approve the minutes for February 6th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Catherine. We have a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? The motion carries. Okay, are there any announcements from the county, Jan?
Good evening. Thanks to everyone for being here and for our applicant teams and citizens for being here as well. The only thing I wanted to bring up is that we do not have any items scheduled for the April 3rd meeting. Thank you. Start over. Jan Yeckes, Planning Division. Thanks to everyone for being here. We do not have any items scheduled for the April 3rd Planning Commission meeting date. Normally, we would snag an available date for refresher training, so we can do that or we can cancel the meeting. We were thinking about canceling the meeting because we have an oil and gas community meeting that week. That's probably going to have staff out kind of late the night before. But if you want to think about that, we can take that up at the end of the meeting, and you can let me know what your preference is, whether to hold a training on the 3rd or whether to cancel that meeting. That's all I have for this evening. Thanks.
Okay, item number 1 is case number Z17-004, Governor's Run Specific Development Plan. And Amy Carr will be presenting the staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Amy Carr, Planner 1 with the Public Works Department. The County Attorney has reviewed the public notice and has determined that the applicant has met all of the public notice requirements, thereby establishing jurisdiction. So I wanted to start by acknowledging that the engineering staff report was not included in the original packet that was mailed to the Commissioners. An email copy was sent on March 15th, and the website was updated that same day. A hard copy version has been handed out to you this evening. My apologies for any inconvenience that may have caused. What's before you this evening is Governor's Run Specific Development Plan. The applicant is Ginnery Homes, LLC, represented tonight by Brian Dotson. The subject property is located west of South Parker Road and north of East Jewell Circle. The property is located within the 4 square mile neighborhood. The 4 square mile sub-area plan designates this site as single-family 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre. The applicant had originally submitted a proposal for 6 lots for this site, but after several discussions with the 4 square mile association, the applicant changed their proposal from 6 to 4 lots based on the neighborhood's input, which is the application you see before you tonight. The application proposes to create PUD zoning to allow the site to have 4 2-story, single-family detached homes on the existing 1.69 acre property at 9382 East Jewell Circle. The proposed lot sizes will range from 10,639 square feet to 15,577 square feet, with an overall density of 2.37 dwelling units per acre. In addition to the proposed lots, the applicant is also proposing a new private street to provide access to the homes, an open space tract to be used as a park for future residents, as well as a drainage tract for the development. I did not receive any comments from the public prior to this hearing. Based on the findings of the staff report, staff is recommending approval with conditions. This concludes my presentations. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
I have a question. Can you explain the decision regarding the sidewalk connectivity? They asked for a variance on the sidewalk?
Probably something the engineer could answer. Sarah White.
Hi, Sarah White with Engineering Department. This street is a mix of both sidewalk and non-sidewalked area, and this is a transition lot. So to meet connectivity throughout the area, we've come with a compromise to have sidewalk along one side of the lot and then to transition into a roadside swale without sidewalk on the other side. So they will be connecting with sidewalk to the south and to the east, but not on the west.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Are there any other questions? Okay, then I guess we can open the public hearing. Oh, we haven't heard from the applicant. Sorry, I'm so excited about the public hearing. Can the applicant come forward and make a summary, please?
Good evening. Thank you, Amy. Brian Dotson with Genre Homes. I am representing the bank as well. I'm a custom home builder here in the Denver area. And Lead Funding is the owner of the property. They hired me to get through the process, get it developed, make it more marketable. I may or may not be building the homes there, but hopefully so. That's kind of my mainstay. But I got a few visuals for the audience, and some of these you have in your packet, but at least we can kind of get our eyes around the whole site here. So let me get to the computer and all right. Yeah. Expand it. Little technology. All right. So first page, we just have a general overview of the SDP landscape plan. And you can tell over on the left we have our detention pond. We have 3 lots. We have a street coming in that then backs over to the right with track C. We have a park that's going to be shared with the 4 lots. So we're going to have an individual HOA for those 4 units, 4 homes that'll maintain the street as a private street and also the park. And it's up to the homeowners really what they want to do in there. You know, if it's for homeowners that have kids, they may want to put a playground equipment in there or just a gazebo or something like that. So really conceptual at this point. Another conceptual bird's eye view really on how things may lay out. I've got an architect that's kind of given us some basics. We're going with a modern farmhouse theme, very popular today in most of the country. And most of the homes will be about 3,000 or more square feet above grade, 15 to 1,800 square feet in the basement, finished as well. So there'll be a pretty good, $1 million plus cost at the end. Another quick one from above, the overall layout there. And just one more that I may need Amy's help on again. Technologically declined here. This is also included in our SDP and part of the package that you may have, but it gives you some color and styles of homes that we're thinking about putting in there. These aren't the exact models, but we're going to go for this kind of flavor throughout the model, or the homes. It was pretty well received with the 4 Square Mile Group and Huntington HOA, so it'll look pretty nice. But that's all I had. Didn't want to duplicate anything else Amy said, so any questions for anybody?
I have a question about the existing trees that was mentioned that some of the trees that are currently on the site were going to be preserved. Do you know where those trees are located?
The majority is right where the sidewalk starts, and we're hoping that whole area gets saved. before you get into the site and enter. However, back on some of the park areas, there's some trees in that area too. I want to try to keep as many as we can if there's not a home that's going to go in that place.
Can you estimate the number of trees that are going to be retained on that site?
I can, but not tonight. I'll have to go out and look at it. Yep. We'll have to do a quick survey and just kind of get an idea where things may get put and count them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing. We have nobody who has signed up to speak to the governor's run proposal, but that doesn't mean you can't come forward and make a statement or ask questions. Anybody wish to come forward?
Good evening, Madam Chair and rest of Planning Board Commissioners. Mark Lampert, 9022 East Colorado Drive, here representing Foursquare Mile tonight. And I do want to let you know the process that we went through. This was a very nice process for a change. We actually had a developer that came, listened to us, came back and listened to us and came back and finally changed the plan. So it went from 6 to 5 to 4. And this was very agreeable. So we urge the passage of this property to welcome the 4 homes into the area because we believe that it is the best use for that land that has been vacant for years and years and years. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? We'll bring it back to the planning for consideration. I guess we need to close the public hearing unless somebody else wants to come forward. Okay, the public hearing is closed, and what is the wish of the Planning Commission? You want to make a motion? Mr. Brummel?
Of course. In the case of C-17004, Governor's Run Specific Development Plan, the Planning Commissioners have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and listened to the application's presentation and public comment as presented at the public hearing. I hereby move to recommend approval of this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to conditions 1 through 3 in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jamie is the second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So we now move forward to item number 2, which is case number P17-005, Highline Creek Estates, FDP, and Kathleen Hammer is representing the county.
Good evening, Chair, Rick, and Commissioners. My name is Kat Hammer, Planner 2 with the Public Works Department. The application before you tonight is for a final development plan for the Highline Creek Estates, formerly known as the Iliff Avenue Single Family Homes, project number 17-005. I want to start with notice for this application was given in the form of 2 signs placed on the subject site, and the property owners within 300 feet were notified of the project via mail, and that I'm establishing jurisdiction. First and foremost, before you tonight, I have printed off copies of the landscaping plan and fencing details. And I also have digital copies of building elevations. Staff was working with the applicant to correct a few things on those building elevations, so I will be able to provide you with a digital copy if you have any questions and want to see those. So my apologies there. The proposal tonight is for 121 single-family homes on an 8.75 acres property located at the northwest corner of East Iliff Avenue and South Yosemite Street, which is located in the Foursquare Mile area plan. The proposal meets the requirements of the approved Iliff Avenue single-family homes preliminary development plan, and county staff is recommending approval with the attached conditions. I did receive 2 phone calls from the public prior to the meeting. One was requesting details of the screening and traffic, and I forwarded on that information, and the other request was for architectural details and more information on the approved PDP. So I was able to get those requests fulfilled, and I believe those people will be in the audience tonight. I to answer questions, and the applicant is also here if you have any questions for them.
Are there any questions for Kat? Okay, thank you very much. We will now hear from the developer. The applicant, please.
Yes. Wasn't expecting that to come off. Technology. Good evening, staff. My name is Scott Alpert. I'm the president of Alpert Development, Inc., which is the applicant for this project. My address is 1201 East Parker Road, Suite 200, Denver, 80231. I'm excited to be here tonight because I've been working on this project for 3 years now, and hopefully it's all coming together now, and we're getting closer and closer. We originally, 3 years ago, came in with a townhome project, actually 4 years ago, a townhome project which has just now been approved about 2 months ago, that is to the west of this project. And originally we thought we would do townhomes at this site, which is 8.5 acres. And at the advice which we took from Foursquare Mile, we decided to do 121 single family instead of over 200 townhome units. We thought there could be or should be a big need in the marketplace to have more affordable homes that are new in this area. There's really not a lot available now. Most people have to go further east now to find a home that's in the $400 or $500 price range that's new. Next slide. This is the townhome project. The previous slide was the elevations of the single-family homes. This is the townhome project that was just approved next door to it that has 68 townhomes, and we're looking forward to starting that probably this summer. This is a project we just finished that is on Mississippi and Willow Street, which is also in the Foursquare Mile. We finished this last July, and this is a townhome project called Willow Point Townhomes. This is also in the Foursquare Mile called Valencia Court, and these homes now are reaching about 600,000. We started originally in 2010 and finished the project in 2015. There's about 66 homes in this project. This is Oak Park at Cherry Creek. This is near the Denver Friends League, also in the Foursquare Mile area. And there's 33 homes in here in a gated community, and the homes in here are in the 500s now. This is about a mile away from here. This is on Cayley and Havana, and not in the Foursquare Mile, but in Arapahoe County. This is a project we built in the early 90s, and the 200 price range now I think they're approaching 800,000, which is pretty amazing what's happened out there in the last several years. This is a project right next to it that's 60 homes, also in Arapahoe County, about a mile from here, and I think these might even be approaching 900,000 now. They start in the threes. This is a project that I actually grew up in that was in Arapahoe County. Now it's in Greenwood Village, called Sundance Hills. And these were half-acre lots that my father and his brothers built that I think started around $30,000 or $40,000 in the 70s, and now they're probably around $1 million, something like that. This is Arapahoe Lakes. This is about a mile from here also. And there's a nice lake and green belts that are going through it. And our family's pretty proud of this. And it's stood the test of time and held up pretty well. And it's a mixed-use community with single-family and townhomes and apartments and condominiums and lake houses. And there's a school, High Plains Elementary School, that our family donated the land for. This is the subject property right now that is in the Foursquare Mile, and it's on Isla from Yosemite. right now there's power poles and old dilapidated housing and trees and cars and trucks and all kinds of stuff that a lot of the neighbors across the street keep telling me, when are you going to take all that out of there and build some housing? I keep telling them, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer. This is where the townhome project is going to be. That white house has now been torn down, and we've been bringing dirt into the project because we have to raise part of the site up and about 2 feet or something. And there was a windmill on that, and we donated the wood to different people that wanted it so they could have old barn wood in their basements and different entertainment centers that people were building, and we gave the windmill away. Excuse me. This is another house that's on the project that we're going to tear down, and the power poles are all going to come down. Go to the next one. This is if you're, I believe, standing on Yosemite looking west. Can't quite tell. This is looking west on Yosemite. There's firewood, and right now it's an operation that the owners are renting to a firewood company to cut and sell and distribute firewood. And so that'll be hopefully going away real soon, and a nice subdivision will be coming in its place. This is what we're proposing. This is an artist rendering of the houses, and this is if you're driving west on Iliff and just passing Yosemite. So right here is the intersection of what will be Iliff and Yosemite, and that corner house is that corner. This is the site plan. The green shows the different green belts in the community, so that all the homes in the community will have their own green belt that they share with other people. There's going to be a pool that's depicted in blue and a playground that's around the pool. And this is right just to the left of this project is the entryway off of Iliff, and that shares the entryway. It shares the townhome project and the single family project. And it took us, part of the 3 years was to get all of this land assembled so that we could put the entrance on Iliff that the county wanted, so it wouldn't be too far. It would be far enough from Wabash and Yosemite, so it's more in the middle of the street where the county wants it. And that took us a while to get it done, but we got it done, and that's now going to be the entrance off of Iliff, so people will be able to take a left hand off of Iliff into the project, and then also people will be able to go through the project and then exit off of Yosemite or exit off of Iliff. And so that was a big coup for this project, and the traffic engineer can speak to that if people have questions on the traffic at a later time tonight. This is an example of a project that has green belts in between it. Ours are going to be wider than this. This right now I think is about 20 feet in between the buildings, and we're going to be more like 30 feet at the smallest and up to 37 feet from building to building where our green belts are. So we're going to have wider green belts. This is a project that's in the 4 square mile area called Valencia Court, and we took a detention pond, and instead of just having weeds and native grass, we landscaped it, put retaining walls in it, put trees in it, and put a sidewalk in it, and turned it into a nice park instead of just a crater-looking hole to hold water during the 100-year storms. This has gone over pretty well, and the neighbors like it, and the kids sled down the hill in the wintertime, and the neighbors like to walk their dogs and have little picnics or whatever in there, and that's what we're proposing for doing on some of our other, pretty much most all of our projects now that have detention ponds. Next. That's it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Do you have any questions? Did I read that roads on the interior of the project will be private roads?
They're a private road, but they're not gated. So they're 30-foot wide roads that go through the project. They'll mostly be used for the residents, but someone, if they want to drive in, can get in there.
The HOA would be responsible for repaving or patching if it's...
Yes. Yes, and I'm responsible for all the landscaping, trash removal, and the water and all that.
I have a question. So how are you working the left-hand turn off of Iliff? Are you going to put a deceleration lane to turn left into the project? Because it won't be at either of the lights. Is that right?
Our traffic engineer can speak more to that, but there's going to be a decel and XL lane, I believe pretty much the whole length of the project for the single family and for the townhome project. And the Iliff is supposed to be widened, and there's a whole plan for a widening of Iliff between I believe it's like Evans and Havana, and this is going to be widened throughout there, so there's going to be improvements made to the whole road, and the traffic engineer could speak to what type of improvements in turn lanes and that kind of thing.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, we will now open the public hearing, and we have quite a few names of people that are interested in speaking, so I will call them off as you're listed here, and please come forward and state your name and your address. And please know that you're all being recorded, so keep that in mind. The first name is Tom Braun on East Jewel Circle. Would you like to come forward and speak?
No, I just had to sign in.
Okay, that's fine. The second name is Tony DeSantis. Do you wish to come speak? I guess not. Ed and Peggy Jennings. Mr. Jennings.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ed Jennings. I live at 2238 South Yosemite Circle in Denver, right across the street from the project. I'm also the president of the Master Homeowners Association. And I just wanted to communicate, first of all, that we're very happy to have this project going on across the street. We've affectionately referred across the street as the wood pile with the rats. So you can imagine our excitement of having this developed. Some of the homeowners have expressed to me some small concerns, and I would just like to bring those up because I'm sure that they're easily mitigated. There seems to have been, because of the activity that's now taking place, an increase in rat population coming across the street into the community. Apparently they don't know they're supposed to stay on that side. I understand that rodent mitigation, maybe that's a nicer term, is suggested in the plan, and perhaps if that was worded a little more strongly, that, you know, we will aggressively move to DEFCON 1, 2, and 3 quickly, that would be helpful, because we're seeing more rats than in places where we haven't seen them before, and including my backyard, and it's always disconcerting when you see that for the first time. Number two, there's been a concern, and I wasn't quite sure if I saw that on the map or not, and so the traffic engineer could probably help us out a little bit. But our primary exit out of the community is right on Yosemite. And I think the entrance to the other community was going to be directly across from that. And there was, is that true? I want to be sure if I have that correct. That was, yes, okay. So the question is, I understand there's a 90-page traffic study, very nicely done, and I understand that it was rated an A or a B, and if it's an A or a B, that means it's okay to go. And if you have an A or a B, then alternatives aren't really discussed or looked at. But an alternative that some of the people had suggested in the community was, could that come out onto Warren, which parallels Iliff, allowing the opportunity to make a right or left on Warren, and either go to Wabash and come out on Iliff, or come down Yosemite and go on to Iliff, and thus not causing more of a traffic congestion right there at both entrances to the communities. So that was a small thing. And then the last small thing is the wall on Yosemite, I think, is going to be a brick wall. And then as it comes along the back of Yosemite, it was going to be a different type of fence. And for consistency, people were wondering, could it be the same brick wall just for the consistency of that community? Those were the three suggestions that people had mentioned to me. I just wanted to bring those to the meeting and ask for consideration. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next name is Brian Dotson. Mr. Dotson, would you like to speak? Guess not. Carl Hawkins?
Thank you. Excuse me. My name is Carl Hawkins. My address is 2240 South Yosemite Circle, Denver. Again, right across the street from the development. My primary concern, and I've not lived in the area nearly as long as some of the other folks, but my primary concern is the rodent population, or the mobile rodent population. As the construction takes place, or rather, actually, I guess the destruction takes place, and the wood pile is moved and all that sorts of things happen, those rats are going to scatter. And we would very much like to see the strongest possible defenses put up, whatever that might mean technically from a rodent control perspective. And as I understand the staff information, or the staff report now, it's suggested that things be done, but not emphasized as much as we'd like to see it done, because obviously we don't want them we don't want them any place, but we certainly don't want them in our community. I don't know how you get rid of a well-bred and ingrained population of rodents, but I'm sure there's lots of folks that are in that business that know how to do it. And the second question I had, it relates to what Ed said, but I think he got the street names backwards. The plan now calls for a 6-foot brick wall along Iliff, which turns into an open, or it's a latticed wrought iron fence going north on South Quebec, which exposes the backyards of all those single-family homes to being seen and seeing. And that may be uncomfortable for them. It's probably very going to be uncomfortable for the folks in the art association, the township, the individual homes that back up to South Yosemite. So they'll be looking at each other. On our side, we have a fence. On the project side, there's going to be apparently these lattice wrought iron fences, which don't really provide any, I wouldn't say security, but they don't provide any blocking of vision like the brick wall does on Iliff. And we would very much like to see the brick wall extended up South Yosemite. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, the next name is Barbara Leffler.
No, thank you.
Kathy Trujillo. Jan Moore.
Thank you. I may not have been reading the map correctly, but is there a point of egress onto East Iliff Avenue? Or are they on the east and west sides or Warren thereof?
I think the developer can answer that. You ask the questions now, and he will provide detailed answers after we've heard the rest of the public.
Okay. My concern is not to dump more traffic onto East Iliff Avenue.
Okay.
That's my only question. And I applaud you for developing diversity of income levels in the housing project. That's very, very commendable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Margaret and Jan Kelly.
Thank you. My name is Margaret Jane Kelly. I live at 2206 South Yosemite Circle. I represent the Homeowners Association. I am president, and a lot of the owners have come to me and said, what do you know? And so that's why I'm at this meeting. I agree with the rodent control. I've only been there 2 years. I lived in Lone Tree before I moved to this project. And, I had mice in Denver because they built homes behind the townhomes in Lone Tree. And that is usually taken care of by a service, which I still have since I moved in the place because I could not live with mice. And I know once you start building, I've been through this before in Lone Tree, that they're going to come out from everywhere. And so we would like you to take a look at that and see if there's anything you can do to help us to keep rats, mice out of our property. Since I moved in and done some landscaping, I dug up 9 baby rats. It freaked me out, where I called Orkin and Terminex to take care of it, because I can't live that way, and I know most owners can't. So that would be one of the major priorities. One of the other things that the owners have asked about is the noise level when all the heavy equipment comes down Yosemite, because it looks like that's the street they're going to be using most of. I've been at home the last few days, and I've noticed there's a lot of city trucks out there, so I guess they've already started part of the project and doing whatever they need to do. I have no idea what it is, but they're out there doing something. One of the other things is they asked me how long it takes to build these homes. I don't know what time frame you have. I've worked for builders before, and what the builders I've worked for usually do is they take a plot of land and they build until they finish that plot of land, then they add the next plot. And so if that's 6 homes, 8 homes, I guess it depends on the builder. But if someone can tell us how many homes are going to build on each lot, I know you have 121 homes, and how long that's going to take. And I know there's events that come up that you can't really tell us, but if you can give us some kind of estimate, we would be happy with that. One of the other things is, you said you're going to have parks and green belts. Will the township be able to use those? Is that just private to the new development? And also, the pool has come into question because I know a lot of different homeowners in different subdivisions can join the pool if there's one in the area. So that's been a question too, if we would be able to join into your pool. Let me just take a look here for a second. So I'm kind of confused just from being here today about, so you're still building the townhomes. Is that correct?
The developer will answer your questions.
Okay, facing Island. And the other block of land are the homes. And they will have basements according to what was stated before. And they will be 3-story, 2-story. Does it count the basement being 3-story?
They will address that.
Okay. And there was also questions about the fence. We know the gated community across the street has the nice stone fence. And so we were wondering if they could make one type of fence facing Iliff and facing Yosemite. So that's all my questions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next person is Gary Dresner.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Gary Drescher. I reside at 2242 South Yosemite Circle, which is directly across South Yosemite Street from the proposed development. Without belaboring many of the things that have already been addressed, I just have a few additional points. I think to answer the question that you raised about folks who want to exit onto Iliff and go east, the 90-some page traffic impact analysis report anticipates that those folks will first go west on Iliff and then make a U-turn at Wabash to go east on Iliff. That's possible. I don't think it's very likely that folks will do that, and I'll come back to that in a second. Rats seem to be the big topic of the evening, and without belaboring that, the Tri-County Health comments says that the developer should eliminate rodent infestations. And the planning report at number 5 says that the developer will comply with those comments. Just to restate what's been stated earlier, I'd like to make sure that that language is strong enough to make sure that it's not just a should or ought to, but will in fact mitigate the rodents. Getting back to the traffic issue, there is an alternative for exiting onto Warren instead of Yosemite. There's already by the North Detention Pond a 30-foot wide street, which is actually wider than the 26-foot wide access proposed for Yosemite. Given that the Iliff Avenue townhomes will likely use whatever access that is to go north on Yosemite or to go east on Iliff, that might be a better location than the egress onto Yosemite Street. The wall along Iliff Avenue has already been mentioned, and the development code allows such walls where backyards and side yards are adjacent to arterial and collector roads. I've confirmed that Iliff is an arterial and that both Yosemite and Warren Avenues are collector roads, and the development code in section 12-803 allows walls in those locations, but then goes on to say, if there is a wall, the same design and materials must be used for the entire frontage of the subdivision. So as I read the development code, if there is a wall along Iliff, which I think is very appropriate, then it appears to me that the development code requires a wall along Yosemite and Warren, not the open fence that has been proposed. And finally, the landscaping plan for the development is just excellent, in my opinion. I do know, however, that there are numerous large trees, scarlet oaks, proposed for Iliff, and a handful for Warren, but only 2 along Yosemite. Don't know that there need to be additional large trees, but perhaps redistributing those so that there are some more large trees along Yosemite would be a good idea. That said, I think this is a vast improvement over the current use of the lot and an improvement over the prior zoning. And so I think it's a good project. I think there are some things that could be tweaked to make it even better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, the next people signed up are Polly and Tim Trumbull. Would you like to speak? Kathleen Jackson.
My name's Kathleen Jackson, and I live at 2275 South Yosemite Circle, directly across the street from the proposed development. And my issue is the entrance to the new development is directly across from our development, our exit on Yosemite. I don't know how familiar you are with this street, but it's just a little two-lane street. And we get a lot of traffic from Florida going towards Isla, especially in the morning during rush hour. And the school buses use that street, as do RTD. So if you have the developments directly across from each other, it's just, to me, it just absolutely won't work. I would like to see it either staggered, where the entrance to the new development is not directly across. The ideal location to me would be onto Warren, because then people could go either east or west onto Isla, as opposed to right now trying to have everybody, especially the townhomes, leaving, congesting this area, which is already congested during rush hour, and even becomes more congested as the buses get on there and if the weather's bad. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. And finally, we have Stephen Pekar.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Pekar. I work at 8933 East Union Avenue in Greenwood Village and represent the landowner. So I represent the taxpayer in this case. I think this is excellent development, well thought out. Naturally, as a seller, I would support it, but I understand the entire process that Alpert Homes has worked with the county to resolve traffic and drainage issues. And, you know, I'm the first to admit that the land is an eyesore. Its uses, you know, the current uses go back decades. And given the acute shortage of housing in Denver, which was even reported in the news this week, there's still a very dire shortage of housing, affordable housing in Denver, affordable being sort of a relative term. Today, $400,000 or $500,000 for a home is affordable in the metro area. And given the war stories we all hear about housing within the metro area, and this is a close-in parcel, allowing middle-class families to move into an area they don't have to commute an hour to get to work. So I support the project from the very fact that the city needs in-town affordable housing, and I think Alpert Homes is going to provide that for the community. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the last name on this sign-in sheet, but is there anybody else that would like to speak to this development? Please come forward and state your name and address.
I passed by my chance earlier. Tom Braun, 8949 East Jewel Circle. What's the square footage of the homes, roughly? You know, and then kind of a rhetorical question. Can a landowner use rat poison himself?
Yes. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Mr. Lampert?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mark Lampert, 9022 East Colorado Drive, representing Foursquare Mile tonight. This project is, after many, many years and many developers we've worked with, this is by far one of the best. The most recent one that most of you would know would be that there was going to be a senior center in the center of this, except for the woodpile lot. Nobody seemed to want the woodpile lot. I think you heard tonight why, because nobody wants to have to deal with the rodent situation, which is very evident there. I think that when the country club built their wall, I think they went down to China to build the wall so they can't tunnel underneath the wall. But we have worked many times, including the Cherry Creek Country Club had an option on part of this land and wanted to build a bridge or a tunnel to go from this parcel to the country club to extend to a different type of development. That we basically could not see that there would be a bridge over Iliff, and certainly because of the water table, there couldn't be a tunnel under there. So that did not work out. The one that went the furthest was that senior center, but it was in the center of the project, and it was an issue of the height. And that was a developer that came from out of state that was putting up a very large, massive common area hall that was going to go up in excess of 4 stories. When you look at this parcel was basically sitting in a valley. Where this is, it's a valley. All the other land is much higher. So as you come and look at this, in fact, as you're driving down Iliff and you have your window open, you'll see the temperature change from up on Parker Road or over on Evans and Quebec when you come down here because of the rivers. You have the High Line and you have the Cherry Creek that come across here. So we're constantly working with a variety of developers and finally applaud Mr. Alpert in assembling all of the parcels from Yosemite to Iliff to Warren and basically up to part of Wabash. But he couldn't get the corner on Wabash because the Cherry Creek Valley Water and Sanitation District has an office there and there's pump stations there, so that could not be purchased. One of the things that we worked very close with Mr. Alpert on was burying the power lines. We're trying desperately to get rid of all those power lines along there. Part of Iliff, in the redevelopment plan, Iliff is going to be changed in about 2019 and 2020. The idea is we would like to see that beautified. Beautify means take care of the power lines. So one of the first things we talked to Mr. Alpert about was burying the power lines, and he was very conducive to allow that to happen. Now we deal with the water district to take care of about 50, 75 feet of that as well, and they will comply as well. We're trying to beautify the entire 4 square mile area starting right here. Again, the woodpile lot, everybody loves the woodpile when it comes winter, but nobody likes it for the rest of the year. And as already known, they are starting to clean up a little bit of it. The issue of the rodents is going to be an ongoing problem because in any construction, as you well know, once the earth is moved, then everything that's subterranean will come out. So we, again, would urge, just like all the homeowners that live at the township, that he comply and do as much possible to control the rodents before they go across Iliff, before they go across Wabash, or before they go across on Yosemite. Because, again, being a good neighbor means taking care of the problems that you have and not sharing it with everybody else. So, again, we are in favor of this project because we'd like to see this land finally develop. It's one of the last large parcels in the 4 square mile area, and Mr. Alpert has had a very good track record in 4 square mile, complying with our guidelines and complying with what he says he's going to do. So again, we wholeheartedly support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to come forward and speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and have the developer address the questions that have come up.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see. Try and remember them all. I heard comments about the fencing and backing to the backyards on Yosemite. We're proposing a 6-foot solid wall along Iliff, which is going to be a concrete wall, but it's going to look like brick, like we've done on the other projects. On Yosemite and on Warren, we're planning on brick columns, which you can kind of see in this picture, with wrought iron in between the columns, and the columns are like every 15 or 20 feet. Our backyards are on our alleys. Our front yards are on Yosemite. So what you're seeing is the front of the houses, not the back of the houses. And we thought it would be nice to be able to see the front of the houses from Yosemite. I suppose at some future point, if we or if somebody else decides to put a solid wall, I imagine everybody would be happy with that. We thought it would be nicer to have a tree-lined walk, and that's also where people walk into their front doors. So there'll be gates in that. Actually, you walk around the sidewalk is inside the gate, and then they'll be able to get to their front yards that way. So we thought it'd be nicer if it were open. So I think we'll probably want to try that first. But again, they're front yards, not the backyards. On the Iliff, they're the side of we side on, and there's only, I think, 6 or 8 homes of the 121 that side on to Iliff. The traffic, I'm going to let the traffic engineer address the improvements that we're planning on making to Iliff and to Yosemite. So, and he can address the different turn lanes and excel, decel, that kind of stuff. It's more his thing than mine. But there are definitely going to be improvements made. What else did I hear? Rodents. I don't have a lot of experience in rodent removal. I have had some experience where I've been on the other side of the rodents, like the neighbors are. We own a project that's across the street from the Breakers apartments, and they had 2 summers ago a large rat problem, and we are across the street from them, and we were concerned that when their rats got bad enough and would come over to our side of the street, and in some cases that happened a little bit. But we learned from that after talking to exterminators and that the main thing that they're looking for, of course, is food. And so they can get into a trash can and they can sniff out trash, and so they told us we really need to be careful with what we do with our trash and how we store it, and not to leave it out, and not to leave the trash cans out. And I would recommend that to the neighbors on the other side of Yosemite. We're planning on putting up silt fence, which will help with the erosion. I don't know if it'll keep rats out, like Mr. Lampert said. They can go deep probably underneath that or over above it or whatever. Rats are difficult. In Israel, they had a mice and a rat problem, and they brought in a bunch of cats. And now they have a cat problem, and they can't bring the dogs to get rid of the cats. So I don't know a lot of what can be done with rodents. I'll check into it and see. I know with prairie dogs, a long time ago they used to have a vacuum cleaner that could vacuum them up. I don't know if they do that with rats, but I'll check into it. And one of the gentlemen in the audience had a good question if they can put poison out, and that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. My guess is the answer is yes. I don't know. Probably depends on what kind of poison and all that. Let's see. The homes are going to be mostly, the average is probably going to be about 1,800 square feet. They're going to be 3 and 4 bedroom homes. They're going to have 2-car garages, and they're going to be 3 stories. On the first floor, and I failed to mention this in the beginning, what they look like, because they're really nice, and maybe some of the neighbors want to move across the street. They're going to have garages on the first floor and a room that could be a study or a bedroom. And then you'll go upstairs to the first floor, which will have the kitchen and the family room and dining room. And then you go to the third floor, which has 2 or 3 bedrooms. And they're going to have decks that are going to be like on the first floor and also on the second floor. And they're going to have small little fenced yards on the front, so that people that have pets can keep their pets or kids or whatever in. And what other questions did I hear? The pool, we're planning on doing a metro district because the development costs have really escalated in the last few years due to the market and also due to all the different requirements that we have, including burying the power poles. So with that metro district, we're going to put that in the pool. We're planning on, and the parks and the maintenance of that, we're planning on putting it into a metro district. And that metro district then will allow people to join the pool by paying a fee. And I don't know what those fees will be and what the requirements and how many memberships will be able to be sold. But it'll be a public pool. That's what we're planning. Or can be used by the public for a fee. Anything else? Square footage, thank you. The homes are going to be from the smaller end from 16 and to the largest will probably be like 2,300 square feet. Total first, second, and third floors. They are we're not for sure yet if they're going to be slab on grade or have small basements. We haven't quite figured that out yet. But if it has a small basement, that'll add maybe another 200 or 300 square feet. And if demand works, and we might design some larger units depending upon what happens with pricing and that kind of thing, and demand for what we're going to start with.
A question about the timeline?
Timeline right now with the market being pretty tepid, we're thinking that it could be a 3-year project. We're planning on starting the townhome project this summer, and we're hoping to fall right up into developing this project. So we're hoping to have land development done by this year, middle of next year, and then start the construction of the townhomes and then the single family in probably mid-19, and hopefully be completed a few years after that, pending the market.
Are there any questions for Mr. Alford? So I'm hearing you saying that you acknowledge that there is a rodent problem and that you will find out what the best measures are to take care of it, and you will communicate that to the adjacent homeowners so they can...
Tonight's actually the first I heard of the rodent problem, so I was a little bit surprised about that. I'm going to do some investigation as to what can be done with them before we start. First, the firewood person that's renting the property is going to be cleaning up and getting rid of a lot of his stuff first, so that then we'll just have the buildings on it. Then we can inspect it, see what we can do with them. And meanwhile, though, I'd recommend, based on our experience with being across the street from the breakers, is to make sure that you don't have the trash cans out and food sources for them to get to, and talk to an exterminator about some type of a program if you haven't already, or if they haven't already, about what to do about that. Okay. That's what we did at Willow Point, and that has helped greatly.
Okay, there was also a question about the fact that your entrance will be right across from the entrance and exit across the street.
Oh, yes, thank you. We actually had it staggered originally in one of our original plans on Yosemite, and the county asked us to line them up with the other entrance to the other neighborhood across the street. They thought that would be for traffic and would be better for people making different turns and that kind of thing. And again, we're improving Yosemite so that there's going to be a turn lane, and I'll have our traffic consultant address that.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Alford? Okay, thank you very much.
The only thing I'd like to say is it's been a joy to work with all of your staff. They're working tirelessly. They're working late at night. I get emails from that are like 8 and 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, wow, you guys are still at work, and they're doing a great job. And I know they're inundated. And just wanted to thank everybody and for all the work they put in to this project. And thank you.
Thank you. The traffic engineer?
Sorry. I'd like to introduce Chris from LSC Traffic.
Thanks, Scott.
Do you want me to stay up here with him?
Okay. Thanks, Scott. So we've been working with Scott on this project and the townhome project for several years. We actually also did the traffic study for the senior housing, or the senior assisted living project that was planned. I think it was maybe 2012 or 2013. That traffic study, we actually, it did not include the hard corner here. That was assumed to be commercial and office at that time. So the current project has a lot less traffic than that would have, as you can imagine, with no commercial and no office. So now to the current project. Can we pull the site plan up? That would be helpful, I think, to talk about access. So in the very bottom left-hand corner of the colored part of this is the three-quarter access on Iliff. And by three-quarter, what I mean is that if you're entering the project, yeah, that's good. How's that? Yeah. So this is the access we're talking about here. So if you're entering the project from the west, there's actually an existing left turn lane that more or less goes to nowhere on Iliff. So that left turn lane will be repurposed by our project and the townhome project as kind of a shared left in. So if you're coming from the west, from I-25, you would be able to turn left into that turn pocket that already exists. The project you heard referenced a couple times that in 2019/2020, the whole corridor here is planned to be improved. The westbound direction will pick up a third westbound lane, which is planned to be a continuous right turn lane. So folks that would turn into this access would have that right turn lane in, and then if they want to go west towards the interstate, say in the morning, they would have a right turn lane to turn out. So the three movements that are allowed at this intersection will all have a turn lane. The one movement that's not allowed is the left turn onto Iliff to head east, primarily because it's not a suitable distance for a traffic signal at this location, and we frankly don't have enough volume to warrant a traffic signal. So the left turns, what you heard a reference about some U-turns on Iliff. What we assumed was the people that want to go east on Iliff, just over 90% of them would come out here and take the left traffic signal. We said about 10% would come down here and do a U-turn. We wanted to make sure with sensitivity analysis that if we send a few U-turns down there, that doesn't cause a lot of problems. So whether we get those 3 or 4 cars doing that or not, it's hard to say, but there is capacity over here. Part of the intersection, part of the Iliff corridor improvements is to improve this north leg of Yosemite. Currently there's a southbound left turn lane, and then the through and the right lane are shared. There's not a dedicated right turn lane. Part of that improvements to Iliff is to expand this intersection to have 3 separate lanes. So a left, a through into the country club, and then a right. So those right turners will not only have their own lane, but they'll have that acceleration lane to go west. So that should make that right turn movement work much better. Scott mentioned originally there was an access further down, and staff's opinion, and I agree with it, is that you should, if you put an access here and then one over here, now you've got 2 conflict points. Now, currently, this way you only have 1. So you have an intersection that goes across both sides. So I think what you'll find, though, is the folks that live particularly in the western half, kind of to the left of my cursor, that want to go towards the interstate, I think you'll find most of those come down and take the right here to go out. So I think what you'll see turning left here will primarily be, it's like 20 or 30% of the traffic. It's going to make that left. We looked at this intersection. The residents, I think most of them live on this access over here. That currently operates at level service B, which is quite good. In the future, it will degrade to C, but that's still acceptable in our world. That doesn't mean that it would be nice if it was an A, but we don't design to A, and it just would be too expensive. So we think that this 3/4 access will take a large percentage of the traffic, most of the townhome traffic. Where did it go here? There it is. So, of course, this is an access too. I think this is this will be a primary access for the people who want to leave the site and go east on Iliff, or the people that want to leave the site and go north on Yosemite. I think for a lot of the other folks, this is going to be the primary access. If for no other reason, then you can avoid the signal. So our traffic study looked at a 2040 scenario in the future with all the projections that were used to do the Iliff widening project. So I'm not going to answer any more detailed questions, but we feel like this is a acceptable plan, and I think the ability to bring this middle site on board. Originally there was a townhome site over here, a gap, and then this project. So when he was able to incorporate this middle project and allow both projects access to this current median cut, that was a big win in my book. That made it from a marginal project to a great project. So I can answer any more questions you have, but that's a quick rundown of access.
Are there any questions? You have a question back here. I guess not.
Thank you.
She had a question. We can't ask questions.
We've already closed the public hearing. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll bring it back to the Planning Commission for any final thoughts and/or somebody would consider a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Very good. Lisa Blatsis will make the motion.
In the case of P17-005, Highline Creek Estates Final Development Plan, the Planning Commissioners have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and the public comment as presented at the public hearing. I hereby move to recommend approval of this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following conditions 1 through 9.
Do we have a second for the motion? Mr. Brummel will second the motion. Any other comments? I'm glad that the developer, Mr. Albert, is committed to looking into the rodent problem, because I think that was reiterated enough that it must be a real concern. And I also am pleased that Mr. Lampert had a positive reaction, because you've had so many developments that have not been easy. So it's nice to have one that has been more positive all along. So, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for coming. Public hearing, I guess, Jan, did you want to ask about the April 3rd meeting?
So before you get away, I just thought I'd check back in on April 3rd.
You know, we could do away with
We might want to give people a few minutes to clear out.
Can you come forward?
Yeah.
You had a lot going on April 3rd, your staff, so maybe I think it's a good idea to do it.
it's the night before we have this oil and gas public meeting that's out in the neighborhood.
But I still think the idea of
Some training.
some sort of training, to me,
Would you like to do it that night, or would you like to just wait for another opportunity? I'm open to whatever. Okay. And I'm fine. I'm sympathetic to, for sure, your guys being out late, that night. But if we have an opportunity for an open night, yes, we wouldn't keep you late. No, I'm okay with coming in if you want to do
I
some
think it would
training.
be valuable.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go. So simply, this is the annual useful to have a training. Yeah. We'll run through some things.
You know it all. No, I think it would be good.
Okay.
I don't want us to think, Randall asked me, what should we be looking at? And I think that's important to know.
Well, now that you've been through, a couple of cases and you can sort of, but that, I would urge Mr. Albert to work with Tri-County Health to come up. Yes. So, I mean, one of the staff should probably kind of suggest that to him, because they've been through this before, I am sure, with other developments where a mitigation plan could actually be developed according with guidance from them.
And
so,
the reason Tri-County gives us these conditions that say
because they don't have any.
Part of the county structure.
Correct. They don't have enforcement. Right.
But
I think that, if you learn what they do, I would think that would be interesting to know.
Yeah. I mean,
First time ever, that would be a problem.
Because I know that, they have standard protocols that they use, but I don't know how in depth, but I'm sure they would be willing.
So you're over here.
So these are.
And then not only will the right centers have a lane, but also have that third lane to come into. So that'll help move the key and move the fast. You guys ever, let's say you're trying to get out, I know this happens a lot. If you're trying to get to the interstate, he's going to right, that left, and all that.
You go down the line and make a left.
If you're going to the interstate, I guess you get a choice. You can sit right here, left, take a right, or take a right ground, and then left onto the four-way stop, which is one direction down to speed.
And then they go.
Not only will it only be paying once, yeah, that's right. Somebody else will be. I don't want to have to deal with them.
Take care.
Oh, really? Signal on each side of that. We have to wait for each I know, I think it's going to be a little bit of growing pain.